365 Sports. Our spring football tour continues as we head out to Arizona. And Troy Hutchinson, GoAZCats.com, part of the Rivals.com network, joins us now. And Troy, thank you so much for hopping on the show today. I know the spring game is coming up tomorrow for the Cats. This is a team interesting in that this is in the midst of pretty much a rebuild from every direction because of what they, how their struggles have been over the last few years. Where are they now, would you say, under Coach Fishett and how they're moving forward? Do you see the positive steps that this team could, I don't think they're going to contend for a Pac-12 title, but maybe make a couple of waves here under him?
Yeah, I think, anybody who's followed Arizona football, fans of Arizona football or people around the country, you have to look at a 1-11 season, and at first that's not very good. Obviously, you don't want to be 1-11, bottom of the Pac-12, but was able to gather a top 20 recruiting class on Rivals.com, headlined by Catalina and McMillan, a 5-star receiver out of California, and just the talent jump that you see at spring practice with the 19 new additions to the team, not only through the recruiting class but the transfer portal. There's just a level of competition that's raised on almost every position, continuity at position, but guys are more familiar with the system. And so far it's shown in spring practice, and it's a lot better product out there on the field than it probably has been over the last 3 to 5 years.
What would you say were perhaps the one or two biggest, most focused on areas of competition?
I would say the number one is the receivers versus the DBs. I think those are Arizona's best two position groups. Like I said, Tetero and McMillan, the kid's a stud. You walk out onto the field and you automatically see him and you're like, yeah, that guy's different. But Arizona's pretty deep at receiver. You have Majon Wright, who's going to be able to play this season. Jacob Cowling from UTEP transferred over. So they're pretty deep at receiver. But with the DB group, it's a veteran group that's been around the Pac-12 for a while. They understand how they want to play off of each other. So those one-on-one matchups have just been dogfights out there in the trenches. Tetero McMillan versus Christian Roland Wallace has been really entertaining to watch. The veterans been able to get the better of T-Mac at times, and then T-Mac makes an amazing catch. And you're like, man, these are definitely the two, like maybe the top two players on the team. And this is the top two position groups on the team. And it could contend for maybe one of the better defensive back groups in the Pac-12 conference.
Where are they, at quarterback? They've got, 6, 7 guys on the roster, all of them freshmen or sophomores, and young and moving forward. Is it Gunnar Cruz's job to lose?
No, I think Gunnar is probably the outside looking in. I would list him at 5th on the depth chart right now. I would say Jaden Delora from Washington State, that's his job. They haven't made an official announcement yet. They probably won't tell fall camp. But Jaden Delora is coming off of a year at Washington State where he was before, where he won Pac-12 Offensive Freshman of the Year. So he transfers to Arizona. He brings leadership. He's been there, done that before in the Pac-12 conference. Looks sharp at times. At times, like an underclassman will need some work, but his understanding of the system's visible. He's picking up quickly, playing in a more pro-style offense compared to Washington State, which is spread, but he's starting to pick it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, that was one of those off-season transfers that I would kind of raise my eyebrows because I saw a lot of him at Pac-12 After Dark, seeing them out there. And he's a good player, but like you said, he's got some things to work on. As far as having a Jaden Delora in place, having the receivers that you mentioned, offensively, what do they expect to get out of this group? The style and the way that they go about doing their business, what's kind of been the message there?
I think it's going to be a balanced attack. Jed kind of wants to bring that to Arizona. In the past, we've seen a more traditional run game kind of style of attack with Rich Rodriguez or Kevin Sumlin. It was a mix, but not a cohesive mix. I think Jed wants to bring that pro-style balanced attack because you are about 3 to 4 deep at the running back position. You're 6 to 7 deep at the receiver position. But it's going to really rely upon the offensive line, who they welcome back almost every starter. It wasn't a great group last year, but they seem a little bit more cohesive and an understanding of the system, and they've grown. They've talked about getting smarter on the football field and understanding their assignments. And, one of the big things that they want to improve on, and they worked a lot on during spring, is red zone offense. They were near the bottom in the country, I believe 120 in red zone offense. So that's going to be the biggest area that they need to improve upon, and that's where they've been working a lot of during spring.
What do you see as the biggest differences between Kevin Sumlin organizationally and Jed Fish?
I think, going back to cohesion and just knowing what you want to do. I don't think Sumlin's staff ever had a plan in place of what they really wanted to do at Arizona. At times it felt sporadic, but with Jed Fish, there is a clear message of what he wants. There's a clear hierarchy of how to go about it. It's a family atmosphere, and I think that's big at Arizona to bring that family atmosphere, family vibe around the program, because Tucson's a college town and it likes to feel a part of something. And Jed Fish has done a great job of not only reaching out to the community, but making the team feel like a family. And I just think that there's a better cohesion with Jed and a better understanding of what he wants for the future of Arizona.
Troy, there's a lot on social media this week. There's been a lot of talk once again about realignment and just the future of college football and things like that. How do you feel about just kind of the state of the Pac-12 from your perspective? And then also based on, what you hear people speaking about. I mean, is there some belief that the Pac-12 has a chance to grow stronger, or is there maybe a little bit of doubt that, like, hey, this thing's kind of on shaky ground at times?
Well, I think in the past, the Pac-12 definitely was on shaky ground. I grew up watching Pac-10 football, which was a much better brand of football at the time when USC was at its height, and yet other programs along the way too. But for a long time, the Pac-12's kind of dropped off a little bit. Oregon's carried the torch at times, Washington at times. But it starts from the top, I think, as a conference. And George Khalilkoff, who's coming in as the commissioner of the Pac-12 from MGM out in Vegas, he is the new commissioner here. There's a clear message of what he wants to do. He wants to, fix some holes that were left behind in the previous regime. And part of that is fixing TV deals. So they got to wait on that, but they're going to be fixing those. Having a remote headquarters. So they're going to be switching to remote, no longer in San Francisco. They'll keep part of the San Francisco stuff there, but everything's going to be remote, and it's making more sense in the conference. But you look at the football standpoint, you get Lincoln Riley at USC. You had some other additions. Washington picked up Fresno State's head coach. So there seems to be much more of a leadership and football understanding from the conference this season. Big expectations out in Southern California for USC. A lot of transfers, so we'll see how they do. But I think the Pac-12 is finally moving in the right direction. And a lot of it's going to stem from how USC does in the next couple of years.
Yeah, Troy, you live in Arizona. We live in Texas. I think that at least in our state's thinking, $7 million a year in rent is too much for something you don't own, that the Pac-12 office was paying.
Exactly. It was way too much money. They're going to downsize a little bit, and I'm sure at some point in time, like I said, George is from Vegas, lived out there, ran MGM Resort, so I'm sure at some point in time the Pac-12 will be having maybe not a headquarters there, but offices in Vegas.
No wonder he went remote.
Yeah.
I mean,
everything's going there, right? Everything's
right.
going to Vegas.
Right.
Hey, how do you feel about, I know it's so far out, and shoot, we'll probably talk to you again before the season starts, but in terms of their non-conference, San Diego State, Mississippi State, they're not really playing around with the schedule, are they?
No, and you have to add North Dakota State to that as well.
Yeah.
I know that's a FCS team, but we've seen them upset a handful of teams before. It's a tough schedule, but I think it's a little bit more workable than people are giving Arizona credit for. San Diego State, they're going to be solid, but at least you get Mississippi State at home in Tucson. That's going to be a hot environment, maybe not hostile, but it's going to be a good environment for Jed Fish there. And then you get North Dakota State at home. If you could get out of that going 2-1, 1-2, you got to feel pretty good about yourself.
Heck, man, I should have mentioned North Dakota State first out of respect, quite frankly. Yeah, thank you for adding him too.
Yeah. What do you think a reasonable expectation for fans would be for Arizona this year?
I think reasonable would be looking somewhere between 3 to 5 wins. I know that's a large window, but you're coming off of a 1-win year. Jed, you guys are out there in Waco, so he talks about Baylor and how Coach Rule went about going from 1-11 to 6-6 to, I believe the record was 12-1, 11-1 at the year 3 mark. Going through that transition and what it takes to do that. Can Arizona do that? I think a lot of that depends on the offensive line. I don't know if it will be that quick, but if Jed gets 3 to 5 wins, I think Arizona fans have to be feeling pretty good about themselves. But the one game that they can't lose this year is ASU. They've lost that game 5 straight times now. You get the Sun Devils at home in Tucson, and that program's going through a lot of ups and downs right now. So that's one win that Jed needs to get this season.
Yeah, I would say so with everything that's going on there in Tempe. Absolutely. Troy, thank you so much for jumping on with us today. Enjoy the spring game tomorrow, and then we'll reach back out during the season.
Have a good one, guys.
Troy Hutchinson, goazcats.com, part of the rivals.com network. I'm interested because especially given what we've seen here in Waco, like teams that are they're completely rebuilding at Arizona.
Yeah. Do you mean Tucson there at the end?
Tucson. No, I'm talking about Tempe, Arizona State.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they should. I mean, it's been tumultuous in Tempe.
No, that's yeah, sorry. I just was thinking Tucson because we were talking, but you're right. Tempe has been a little bit of a furnace. But I mean, that's interesting that he's used Matt Rule as kind of a talking point in terms of what he did at Baylor, I guess 5 years ago now at this. Golly, dude, we're getting old.
Yeah. Well, and Matt Rule did it without the one-time transfer rule.
Yeah, no, it was right before that. He didn't have if he would have been able to get to the transfer portal, my gosh, yeah, he could have talked himself into some probably big time additions. But yeah, I mean, he apparently once he said that, I actually looked it up, and I guess this was from last November. And Jed Fish was talking about, Matt Rule and talking about, okay, I saw Matt Rule's quote when they went from 1-11 to 6-6 to 11-1. He said the easy part was to go from 1-11 to 6-6 because all you have to do is not have dub penalties and score touchdowns in the red zone. The hard part is to go from 6-6 to 11-1. And then he kind of went on and what that will take. Well,
that's true. I mean, when they went from 1 to 6 wins, it was no dumb penalties. It was don't turn the ball over. It was create a couple, which they did in the 6-6 year all that well. It was the 11-1 year where they just started to feast.
They were like 11-3.
Yeah, but I mean, they lost the last 2, right? So, but it was 11-1 in the regular season.
Yeah, they did the anti-Dave Aranda. They lost the Big 12 title game and then lost. No, they won the Houston. Wait, I'm getting my years confused.
No, they lost to Oklahoma.
Yes,
they lost to Oklahoma again, and then they lost in the bowl game. Right?
What was the bowl